Hope you guys were able to. You can't hear me. Ah, okay. Ah, my audio was off. Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the masterclass. We are live. Awesome. And yeah, I'm here with Frida Kochola, who's taking us through our masterclass today. Say hey. She's talking to us about how to be productive if, with your side gig, as you run your side gig, even if you work full time. Okay, so she's going to be taking us through that today. I know my volume is fine because I can actually hear it on my side, on my computer right here. You always have to have it monitored over there. But so cool to have you guys. Thanks for checking in. As you check in, please do share in the comments, where you're watching from, and throw out a question or two about what are the main struggles you have when it comes to being able to manage your side gig. And by the way, let me just say, I have a really bad cold today, so I'm so glad that today we have Frida on with us. But yeah, do throw your questions in, and I'm going to be handing it on to Frida to take us through this. We're just going to take about 40 minutes, give or take, and talk through what are the things that you can do as an entrepreneur. So having a side gig, having a full-time, very demanding job, just how you can get stuff done and actually get sleep. And this is very important for me. I think one of the reasons I have this cold is because I was up really late Monday. And if I'm being honest, yesterday as well, doing work. So I'm like, okay, Frida, save us from this hell of sleepless nights. Seriously.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Thanks for that intro, Jackie. Hey everyone, so as Jackie's introduced me, my name's Frida Kochola, and I help entrepreneurs create time to work on their side gigs rather than the full-time job. And this is something I am so into because, time is a renewable resource. You can never get it again. Once it's gone, it's gone. So I'm very precious about that. And, as Jackie mentioned, like your sleep is so important. And so how do you keep stuff moving within your business and you're still working full time and having a demanding job and building a life? You're building a business. You don't want to forget about building a life at the same time. So it's something I'm so, so passionate about. And I'll be taking you through what I do. So it's not stuff that I pretty much like read in a book and then put some slides together. And this is literally how I live my life day to day, building a business and having a life and working full time. So I'm London based. So I live in the UK, but I'm working in Edinburgh this week. So it's very much, I also have to travel for my work. So there are a lot of moving parts there, and I just want to share with you all my top tips. And definitely, if you've got any questions, definitely let me know. So I'll just jump right in. If you give me 2 seconds, I'm just going to share my screen, and I'll be able to share with you my top tips.
Awesome.
1 second.
As you do that, Frida, we're already getting lots of likes on your presentation. I'm seeing the last coming in actually, and yeah, I'll just keep you posted as we get questions throughout the session. You guys do throw in your questions because Frida is here to you really need to make use of her, by the way, yeah, because she helps entrepreneurs. So if you've been having issues with productivity, let's hear them. Okay, awesome. Go right ahead, Frida.
Okay, cool. So I'll jump right in. So it's how to be more productive as you run your side gig, even if you work full time. And I'm just going to take you through the fastest way to be more productive, and there are three crucial keys that you can use to double your productivity in 30 days. And as I say, this is stuff that I do every single day, and it's stuff that I've tested and I know it works. All right. So I'll just go through it again. I'm here because I help entrepreneurs create more time to work on their side gigs while they're still in their full-time jobs. And a few reasons, a little bit more about me and why you should listen to me. So currently I'm a chartered accountant at one of the UK's largest PLCs. So we sit in the top FTSE 20. So it's quite a large company. And before that, I spent 5 years at a global professional services firm, PwC. So that was an incredibly demanding job. And I work part-time as a consultant at a social media marketing agency. It's based in London. And I do that as I work on my own side, helping entrepreneurs. And I call them after five entrepreneurs. So you work your 9 to 5, and after that, you're sort of getting in and doing your stuff. And what I teach is very much, as I say, what I apply every single day, so I can keep all my moving parts going. And I've helped my clients go from total overwhelm and just being super focused with what you need to do, and pre-planning their work and having more of a structured approach. And I've got my website there underneath kochola.com/after5entrepreneurs, and you can find out more. Okay, so here's what we're going to cover today. We've got the 3 crucial keys to double your productivity in 30 days or less. Then I'm going to share my 4 daily productivity tools. So these are things that I use every single day. And then there's some recommended reading. So there are a couple of books that completely revolutionized what I thought about productivity and gaining, the skills that I need to move stuff along. Okay, so to begin with, I'm just going to talk about what productivity is. And the reason why I'm going to do this is I think a lot of people look at it differently. And there's a misconception here. Yeah. So most people think that productivity means that you're getting more things done each day. But it's not that. Being productive means that you're getting important things done consistently. So, and that's really important. So you're identifying the things that you actually need to do. And not only are you identifying them, but you are actually doing them on a consistent basis. So the things that you're doing, every single day that move you forward. And another thing is that being productive, it's a key habit that you need to develop when you're running a business. It's so important because your success is going to be dependent on your results. So in your business, because unlike being in a full-time job where you work for your 30 days and you get paid, where I found that the mentality is more that I get rewarded for my time. But it's a bit of a shift in thinking when you start having your business on the side, because you're not going to get paid for the time you spend on it. You're going to get paid for what yields results. If you spend 2 hours and people get amazing results with it, you get paid. If you spend 40 and there's nothing, well, and I think that was one of the things that I really needed to do, to sort of shift my thinking in that way. So that's one thing that I really want to highlight there. So you get paid for your results, which is your productivity, and not for the time spent. Okay, so here's a little analogy that I like to use. You can think of it this way. When you're managing your time and your productivity and you only have a full-time job, you're sort of like driving the white little Polo on the left. And then when you sort of throw in trying to start your business or run your business and try and have a life, you start driving the truck on the right. But what happens a lot of the time is that people start driving the truck on the right while they still have the license on the left. And even the government will not let you do that. They will make you go for lessons to go and learn how to take that truck and, take it around corners, drive it on the road. They will not let you do it with the license on the left. So it's so important for you to learn how to manage different moving parts, and then also identify what is important with all of these moving parts that you've got, and keep everything moving along. So what I'd like to say is what I teach is I teach you how to drive the truck on the right. And this is after lots of trial and error, and I got it all wrong, completely wrong the first time round.
A lot of us do.
And it was very messy. Very, very, very messy.
Yeah.
So this is what I do.
Mhm.
Okay, so the three crucial keys to double your productivity in 30 days or less. So these are the three things that are super, super important. It's first of all defining your priority list. So
Yeah.
that's defining your priorities and then creating your priority list on top of that. And I'll go on and just talk about that a little bit more. It's pre-planning your day and your week. It's literally waking up in the morning and just not starting anything until you know what you're going to do that day.
Yeah.
I can't stress the importance of that. It is so, so important.
Yeah.
And then it's working in focused time blocks as well. So I work in Pomodoros, and essentially what that means is you've got about half an hour or 50 minutes where you're uninterrupted work and you're just doing one thing. So you're not trying to do many things at the same time. And I'll talk about that a little bit more as well.
Mm-hmm.
So your priorities and your priority list. So your priority list is your success list and not your to-do list. So this is literally what you've got on here, especially when you're starting out and you're not, if you're good at writing to-do lists, like all the things you have to do in the day, I would literally just scrap that, forget about that for a couple of weeks, and only have your success list. And these are major milestones that are created so that you can produce extraordinary results. So simply put, that just means what will move you forward in your business and even in your personal life as well. Just stuff that you need to move you forward. So, for example, for me, one thing in my personal life is meditation. If I don't spend time meditating every couple of weeks or so, I need an hour to just go through a guided meditation, and that just sort of just gets the gunk out. And that is a priority for me. So that is that goes into my success list because I need it to sort of keep my mind and my sort of mental space in check. And then, for example, last week, one of the things on my success list as well was preparing for this webinar and, creating a template for it and getting the content ready. So that was really important. And once I've checked that off, I know that I am making progress. So your success list is not long. Mm-hmm. It's probably got a couple of things every week and that's it. Okay, so, and then a couple of things here is that if your list isn't built around success, then it doesn't lead you to success. So when you're sitting down it's really sort of doing the heavy lifting and the heavy thinking before you actually dive in. And this is even before you do any planning. What is important to you? What do you want to get done? And one other thing to add is life is an unfair fight. Yeah. It comes to us in more directions that we can fight back. And this was monumental for me because I sort of grew up in an environment where, if I didn't do everything, then, I was in trouble in school and all the rest of it. So I grew up in Kenya and, you go to school and the teacher expects all these amazing things that you're meant to do. And if you don't do it, then you get punished for it. But I sort of had to draw back a little bit and just know that there'll be a lot more than I can ever get done and just accept it. That was probably one of the hardest things. And that's a bit of a David and Goliath story there. Yeah. So you've got Goliath is life that is just coming at you with everything. And David, you have to have a plan of attack. And then you have to be like really strong and really committed to it as well, because otherwise it's just not going to work. Just before I carry on, does anyone have any questions? Are there any questions that have come in, Jackie? I can't quite see them.
Yes. Sorry, just say that again.
Are there any questions, any comments before I carry on?
No, so far, actually, Carol was saying great stuff, Carol's is very interesting. She's saying it's very interesting, what you're sharing so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, okay,
Okay,
fine.
cool.
Sounds
That's
good.
great. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'll carry on.
Yeah,
And so here are a few facts
yeah.
around priorities and your priority list. So you cannot accomplish 100% of your tasks. Your to-do list will grow faster than you can get it done. It's like following a mirage, if you can think of it that way. Every time you think you're getting closer, something else comes on. Every
That's a
time
good
you
way.
think you're getting closer, something else comes on.
That's a good way
And
to
that's
describe
just
it. Mm-hmm.
100%.
Yeah.
It's going to happen all the time. And another thing is that not all of your tasks are created equally. So that's again going back to your priority list versus your to-do list. So it's always thinking about what do I need to do today? And that will move me forward and move me closer to my goals. And then another thing that I find very interesting is as soon as there's some tasks that you've got that as soon as you remove it off your plate, something else comes up, and we know that happens. So trying to kind of think of an example here, but and I can't at the moment. But you know those situations where you sort of if you respond to this email, like another five are going to come back.
Yeah.
But then there's sometimes as well where you can just get something out the way and it comes off your plate. So it's also just being aware of that, and while you're identifying your priorities and your things to do, it's knowing that just what impact will this have? Will it actually cause me will move forward, or will it create 5 or 10 other tasks that might not be relevant? If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of just really thinking about it in that way. Okay, so this is what I use. So this is an example. I just sort of picked up the template that I use, and every single week I do my pre-planning and I identify what my priorities are for the week, and I call my slay moments. So I sort of think, you know what, this week Frida's going to slay, and what is she going to be slaying? And I put them down here. So this is an example. Okay. And I'll talk about this a little bit more once I've covered the working in focus time blocks, because pre-planning I'll come back to this slide because this is quite important. Okay. Once I've explained a few other things. Okay, so now we're going to move on to pre-planning. So why is pre-planning important? So this is just in general, whether it's by week, by month, by day, we're just going to talk about pre-planning. So there's studies that have shown that 1 minute of planning saves you 10 minutes in execution. How amazing is that, right? So for every 1 minute that you plan, you're saving yourself 10 minutes worth of work. So if you plan for 6 minutes, you do the work, but the math, that's an hour that you saved, which is incredible. And then having a list of what you need to do increases your productivity by about 25% in the first day. So this is something, as you get better at planning your day, you will find that you've already built that in. But if you're sort of going in and it's not something that you normally do, I would say in the first week or so, you'll notice a huge difference in what you're able to produce. But then that sort of changes slightly because now you've saved yourself the time and you're doing other stuff. So you sort of build that in. But it's incredible. It's such an amazing feeling as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to quickly talk about the pre-planning checklist that I use, and this is what I do weekly. So there's sort of 3 stages to the planning. There's the monthly pre-planning. I actually have a pre-planning call with some people I do this with on a monthly basis coming at the end of the month. So just look a month forward. But then there's also a weekly pre-planning. So then that's, okay, what am I going to get done in the week? And then there's a daily pre-planning. For purposes of this class, I'm just going to focus on the daily pre-planning. So I'll go into quite a bit of detail on how I do that. But I just want you guys to know that, it's especially around having checklists for things. So knowing, especially when it's stuff that you do all the time, So like weekly and daily, I have checklists, so I don't have to think with what I'm doing. How I like to think of it, my brain is a processing unit, not a storage unit. So whatever it is I can use a checklist for, I will create that, and then I just use it all the time. It's a bit more time to sort of do that on the front end, but it saves you so much time because you do it over and over and over and over again. And it's great thinking, even within your business, you start thinking in sort of a systems way, which really helps you. And when you can, I'm going to sidestep a little bit here, but when you start thinking of how you do your stuff in a systems sort of thought process, you'll always do better than someone who just works, this is sort of in a linear way, just not having any systems and just doing what they need to do all the time, but sort of starting from scratch every single time, you will always do better than them, even if they're the most efficient person in the world, in my opinion. Okay, so this is the weekly pre-planning. I set my priorities for the week. You'll see I create my priority list there that I link through. So I use this on G Drive. I review the month's priorities. I think about the 2 most important things to do this week to get me through the month, and not too many, because I always see people putting so much stuff in it. And that doesn't really work because you feel like you've fallen short, like you're not able to get things done. So it's important to just start with like really, really small things so you can sort of get that encouragement as you go. Yeah. So anyway, so that's it. As I say, I'll sort of just showed you guys that, and I'm going to go through the daily pre-planning checklist in detail. So when do you do this? You do this the night before, ideally. So every night before you go into the day, you know what you're doing, and also before you start your working day as well, a worst case scenario, but I always look at it twice. So the night before, I plan for the following day, and in the morning when I wake up, when I get to my desk, the first thing that I do is check what I planned. And this I noticed, which is not something anybody had mentioned, but what I noticed when I do this is like my brain is already prepared for it. Even if it's something that I don't really feel like doing, I've already got that information. It's like, okay, when I'm going to bed, it knows that, okay, this is what we're going to do. So the stuff that I don't like doing, like I don't like doing admin. I think it sucks. Like things like paying my my bills or looking what's going on PayPal or stuff like that. I really, really don't like that stuff. I noticed it and I have a time for it. Like, okay, this sucks. We really don't like doing this, but we only have to do it for an hour and it's done. And that is amazing. I've found for that. And then, so now I'm just going to move into how we do the daily pre-planning. So we create a list of the things you need to do that day that move you closer to your goal. So remember, when we're doing a priority list, that has been defined already. So then we kind of think, okay, what is the one thing that I need to do, or 2 things I need to do to get me closer to this goal? And then you then set your priority for the day off of that. And what I like doing here as well is just defining what I want my outcome to be for that day as well. And I find that I'm very, very encouraged when I complete something. So if I have like something major to do. So for example, again, when I was creating this webinar, I thought to myself, okay, what are the things I need to do? One of the things I need to do is create a checklist. Again, I work with a checklist, I work with systems, I work with a template. So I need to create a template that I will follow, and then I'll start putting the information in. So that's one of the things I need to do, and I can finish that. So when I sit down one time, like, okay, the outcome for me today is to create my template, and that's it. Yeah. And then after that, it's, it's introduction, it's the content, etc.
Yeah.
So then on the second day, I'm thinking, okay, now I need to do my introduction. What do I need for that? So I sit down and I finish that, because I found that if I don't break it down to that level, and also a level where I can actually finish something, I'm not that motivated. So, and some people say, think about the process, not the outcome. But in my personal experience, I've found the outcome really motivates me. At least I know I've come out of the day, and if someone comes and like, what have you done today? I'm like, I have a template for webinars that I can use for the next year. That for me is such a great goal, or an outcome of a task and stuff that I've planned.
I love that. And
Okay.
by the way, as you're moving along, Carol did say that this is great. She says that her to-do list is so long, so focusing on her result list on the top three things that will move her forward and quickly bring in the cash flow. I think that's like a takeaway. And then she's
Mhm.
also asking, would you please share your slay template? And that she loves the word slay. Awesome, Carol. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll put it. It's in my Google Doc. I will put it in the comments.
Yeah.
I have a template for like everything,
Awesome.
like literally everything. But yeah, for sure, definitely keep the comments coming in, the questions coming in. That would be great.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what I do every morning when I wake up and I sit on my desk. I sort of I look at what I need. I open my calendar and I map out, the times that I'm going to work. So before that, remember, I've decided these are the goals and these are the things I need to do to move me closer to where I need to get to. So that's already done. And then once I've done that, I then come in and I open my calendar and I have a look. I'm like, okay, how much time do I have? Sometimes I've got meetings, sometimes I've got social stuff going in. So I've got 4 hours free today, for example. So then I'll say, okay, I've got these 4 hours and these are the things I need to do. I'm going to map those things, those tasks to those times.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I then think about, so that takes me about 10 minutes. Like just essentially what am I going to do when? To keep it simple.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start thinking about any obligations. So I have my calendar open. So sometimes like, someone will say, oh, do you want to go for a coffee or whatever? And sometimes what I need to do is generally more important than that coffee or more than a dinner. Or sometimes, there are some sacrifices that have to be made, unfortunately, when you have your business and your full-time job. So that's when I start sending out the no's and the laters, or even if it's at work and I've got meetings, I'm always like, do I really need to meet this person? Can we do this via email? Can I just send you all the questions and get back to me? And that is something I've started doing more and more of now. Because I work on different projects within the business and speak to different people, and I'm always having meetings.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes just try and be like, okay, do I really need to meet with this person, or can I do it in a more efficient way? And just another thing I'll add here, sort of sidestepping this a little bit, if you do have if you have loads of meetings, try and schedule them on like specific days. So like this week I had my meetings on Monday and on Wednesday, so that it's not just a mashup and everything is on any day, because then I've got time to work on my focus blocks, because meetings really, really mess up your focus time blocks. Like it cut my productivity when I have to like move from place to place and meet with people. It's affected by about 60%.
Wow.
So
that's huge. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy that. So then I build time for that, and so that's what I do.
Yeah.
I don't have meetings every single day. I used to do that, but not anymore.
Yeah, and it's a big time waster. Just to interject there, a lot of people complain about meetings. Even my husband was telling me about how he suggested a stand-up meeting at his office, and it actually went quite well. So yeah, anything we can do to manage meetings is awesome.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, I'm more than happy, and we can chat about. I'll just make a note of that because I do have a few tips on meetings if anyone is interested in that, and also when to call people when you want information, because there's sometimes you call them, they'll keep you on the phone for ages. Others, you can get rid of them very, very quickly. So I've learned a few tricks here and there. And then I check my emails there for anything that needs processing. So for this one, I do check my work emails and I check my personal emails as well. And I've got to the point where now my emails are at inbox 0 about 2 to 3 times a week. So there isn't too much going on there. I mean, I started about 2000 something, so it's been a journey. It's not like it's been great all through. But so I process and anything, and here put in do not respond. But I would also add that if it takes you less than 2 minutes for that thing to just go away, I would respond to it straight away. If it's going to take you 2 minutes, do it, done. Maybe someone's just asking, hey, can I pick this up at 2:00? Yeah, come, sure. Okay, done, is what I'd add there. Because what happens is if you leave it for too long, the stuff that goes on in your mind, you're like, oh, I need to remember to do this. I need to remember to do that. I need to remember to do that. So it takes up a lot of your mental space. And the technical term for it is cognitive load. So there's a lot of stuff that your mind is trying to sort of think about. Oh, I need to do this. I need to do this. I need to do that. And you want to minimize that as much as you possibly can because it affects your creativity. It affects your problem solving. And if the mornings and when you're fresh, you've had some rest, that's one of the best times to be making key decisions. So you don't want stuff like that hanging in your head for too long. So here say only respond to emails that will take less than 2 minutes to action.
A question on the 2 minutes, is that per email or is that just generally take 2 minutes to quickly skim and respond to those that can get a no maybe?
I say per email. If it's going to take me 2 minutes, because it'll take me longer to schedule to respond to it.
Yeah.
Okay. If it takes me 2 minutes to respond, I'll do it then. My morning routine might be a bit longer, but I've just got rid of that stuff. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Then now we're going to go into focused time blocks. Now this is so precious. If you're not going to take anything away from this whole masterclass, I just want you to listen to this bit here. So if you're on your phone and you're listening to this, or you're somewhere else, just stop.
Yes, I see people putting their phones away or switching off the TV. That's cool.
Do not multitask on this one.
Yeah.
Just stop, right? Okay. So I'm going to explain to you what happens when we actually multitask. So our brains are it's like a computer. And what a computer does when you're going from one window to another or doing one task and just moving from thing to thing, it's processing one thing and then it's moving to the other. But because the processor in a computer is so quick, you don't notice that it's actually doing that, but it's actually completing one process and then picking up the other. So this is what your brain is doing as well. It's when you're, watching a webinar and you're on your phone at the same time, you're switching between listening and, looking at your phone as well and processing the information on your phone. So that's what's happening. So we don't multitask as human beings. Our brains are just not doing that. We're just moving from task to task. So it's like starting over your computer, over and over again in your head. You're just sort of stopping one thing and starting another one, stopping one thing, and you get really tired. There is mental exhaustion that comes with this. And the problem is sometimes we're so used to doing it that we don't even notice how exhausting it actually is until you stop. Wow. And so here are a few facts for you that for me, they shocked me. When you multitask, you lose about 40% of your productivity through the day. So just switching from one, trying to do two things at the same time. And this was me through and through. I just used to think, because that's what I was taught, especially when I worked at the professional services firm. Like, oh, you have to be able to multitask. And then a few years down the road, like now, like, oh my goodness, multitasking is a myth. It's a lie. We actually, our brains don't do that. So, and another thing I'll just sidestep again slightly. How I work is I work based on behavioral science and how our brain works. Yes. So I work with our brains, not against it. So all of the methods and the methodologies that I use to become more productive is based on behavioral science. That's really, really important to me, because it's not just stuff I just picked up and someone says, oh, you need to multitask because this is what everyone else know, what's the science behind it.
Yeah.
And another thing is multitasking drops your IQ as much as smoking weed does, marijuana. So they actually get dumber when you multitask. Over a prolonged period of time, you actually get dumber. So that's just something to think about. That's really cool. And then when you think about it as well, like there's no workplace that will let you smoke weed, but then they're full of distractions and, they expect you to multitask. Like people actually put on their CVs and go for interviews and say, I can multitask. It's a lie, right? Just think about it. If you're multitasking, eventually you are getting dumber. So just bear that in mind. That shocked me a little bit. And it takes, so you'll have constant distractions. Someone will come and ask you for something at work, or even when you're working on your own thing, people want something, or your phone goes, you get a notification in between tasks, etc. When you're in the zone, studies have shown it can take up to 23 minutes to get back into it. And other studies have also shown that we get distracted approximately every 3 minutes. So if you're doing well for 3 minutes and then you're distracted and it takes you 23 minutes to come back in, I mean, how much work are you actually doing? It's no wonder we're not making that much progress, when we're trying to do stuff at work and trying to work in our business, because we're taking our work habits, so the stuff that we do in the workplace, and we're taking them to our business, and it's just a disaster. And there's no progress. So just in summary, so multitasking is making you exhausted throughout the day. It's stealing up to 40% of your time, and it's making you dumber. It's lowering your IQ, to the level of a marijuana smoker. So essentially, we're only working at a fraction of our productivity.
Oops, I think we lost you. We lost Frida. But that's amazing. I think as we wait for her to come back on, I was actually telling my daughter today at the dinner table, because there she is. She's just finished eating. Now she wants to do like a little invite to invite her friends to come over next week. So she's doing that as she's looking at the computer at the same time. So I'm telling her, like, you need to focus, as you do different things throughout the day, what's going to happen is you're getting dumber. It's actually it's killing your brain cells. So that was a really, I think that's a really useful point, So we lost Frida, but I hope she's going to get back. I hope she's going to get back, actually. I hope that she knows that we're not together anymore. But hey, did you come back? Well, once she gets back, then you guys will be able to hear her. But yeah, really, thanks, Carol. I saw your comment about the tips on running meetings, and I'm going to be sure to share that with Frida to share those. I think she probably either, you can probably go and access them on her site at the end when you do what? Where at the end she's going to share a link to show you how you can access some of the stuff that she shared, right? But that's really good. I think the thing about productivity, it still remains such a key thing. I'm also learning a lot about it just in implementing it myself in my work staff. Like, you're doing a full-time job, you're running a side gig. How are you making these all things meet? And by the way, not to mention, your family probably also needs your time. And this week has been a really great example because we've had deadlines. I've had crazy deadlines. My husband has had crazy deadlines. So just realizing that the things that can actually gain you back. I'm just thinking 23 minutes to get back into the zone. Wow, that is crazy. I had never thought about it like that. But one thing I did, yeah, the thing about, you lose 43% every time you're switching. It's something that has always been uh, a very useful one. I think let me try and alert Frida that she's not here yet. I wonder, or maybe can I add her? This always happens by the way with tech. I don't think I can add her. But please keep those questions coming in, and we can chat about them. And she'll also share with you the Google Drive. But what are your tips right now? What are you doing to manage? Maybe while Frida we wait for Frida to come on, what are you using? What are the tools you're using to? And I think she might have joined. Has she joined yet? What are the tools you're using to manage your time? I know when Frida shared her tools that she's using Asana, of course, Google Calendar. I'll say for me, one thing that I'm finding really useful right now is Trello. It's amazing. Like, I'm using Trello and then Slack. So Trello allows me to add boards, and then using Battler for Trello, I'm able to do something with the boards. Like if I want a board to recur every day or a board to recur every week, cards to recur every week in a particular board, then I'm able to, like, say, have this recurring. So every day, every morning, I come in and I have this to-do list, and it's mainly for my assistant because she's helping me do a lot of the things. And it's amazing. We're actually working on a task list for her today, so that we can figure out what are the things that she does. First thing she comes in, what are the things she does throughout the day, what are the things that she fills in as she gets free time. So that's been really good. One of the ways to actually redeem your time is to get someone to do the things which are they just take so much time. I mean, there's so many things that take so much time in our day. I would say one thing is probably like just social media posting alone. That takes so much time in a day. So when I'm not doing rather than do social media posting, then I've assigned that to, like, my assistant to help me do. Because as long as I put the content, as long as I have the content, then what she'll do is take it and post it for me. Also, whenever I do lives, like we have a workflow. Hey Frida, you're back.
Hey, yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I lost connection.
Oh yeah, we lost you for a second there, but don't worry. I was telling you guys about the tools I'm using right now because you mentioned Asana, and then I was just saying talk about Trello. And the good thing about it, then it links through to my Slack chat, so that when something gets done on Trello, but my assistant, then I can see on the Slack chat this was moved to completed.
Oh, cool.
So I really love that. It really minimizes the back and forth. I'll hand it back to you now.
Okay, cool. Let me just share my screen again, guys.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. Okay.
Awesome.
Okay. So I just finished at imagine trying to work and you're constantly having to reboot your computer every 3 minutes. We're definitely not going to go very far with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now I'm just going to go, the solution for this. So working uninterrupted and how I do it. So I use sticky notes. And these have honestly been one of the most amazing things for me. So what I do is, as we mentioned before, in the pre-planning, I go through and look at my calendar and see how many 60-minute work blocks of time I have. And then, so that's everyone for an hour. So an hour's worth of work. And then I say, okay, so today I did 6 hours of focused work in total. And in those 6 hours, I'll have 6 stickies. And within those stickies, I'm going to write the day's most important tasks within each and every one of those. And I try and break it down. Each sticky is something that I can finish, so something that I can actually mark to a level of completion. So that helps me break down what I need to do as much as possible. So let's go back to the webinar example. When I needed to create the webinar template, so that took me about 4 hours to to just get everything in that I needed to. So One of it was actually, okay, how do I create a webinar template? I need to watch a video on that. I need to go in and do some online learning on the best way to structure a webinar. That took me 40 minutes. So in one of my stickies, I'd have, okay, I need to watch webinar creation video. That takes 40 minutes, and then write up some notes. And within this hour, you also give yourself 10 minutes of relaxation time and just doing something that you want. The reason why is because your brain loves reward. Your brain does not like to sit there for 6 hours and just do work. It will get so bored and it will just work against you. So this is where I go into, you work with your brain rather than, I work with the brain, how the brain works rather than against it. Because one of the reasons why we get bored and we pick up our phone is because, we saw a like, you're stimulated. So your brain is like rewarded with a pleasant feeling. And that's what it likes. That's what it wants. It wants that constantly. So every time you're looking at your phone and you're like, got a like. What does that video do? What did someone say on my post? It's stimulation.
Yeah.
So that's what your brain is responding to. Unfortunately, we don't realize this is happening. So it all sits in your subconscious, and that's what's going on. So what you want to do is to give your brain that reward because that's what it wants. Otherwise, it'll mess you up. So you sit there for 50 minutes, you do your work. So I did that. I watched my webinar video, and then I wrote a few notes for about 10 minutes, and then that's 50 minutes of time. The other 10 minutes, I just chilled out. So if I want to go on Facebook, if I want to go on WhatsApp and respond to a message, or I just want to go get another cup of coffee or whatever, that sort of thing. So something that my brain considers a reward.
Yeah.
Then it'll be happy with me and be like, okay. I only have to do this for 50 minutes, and then promise, we'll go on Facebook. Promise. I'm like, yeah, we will.
That's a good one.
And it's like, okay, fine. I will sit here for another 50 minutes because it knows it'll get stimulated in the way that it likes, and you keep training it, and you get better and better at it. When I first started doing my focus time block, I was doing 1 hour in a day. I was like, how is this even gonna look better? Can you believe 1 hour? My brain was so used to constant stimulation that sitting down for 50 minutes with 10 minutes break was really, really hard.
It was
hard. But now I've got to 6 hours, and I can do, my 1 hour, 10 minutes, 1 hour, 10 minutes, and that sort of thing. But what I also do is I build in procrastination time because it doesn't like, sometimes my brain doesn't like following that schedule. So I will say maybe I'll work for 3 hours, and then I'll give myself even an hour where I'll go and I'll talk to my colleagues, and I'll sort of just mess around, but I've built that into my week, into my day. So it's okay. That's how I look at it. And I've found by doing that, I'm able to achieve more. If I sit down and say I'm going to sit down and just do this for 6 hours, I'll get bored out of my mind. But if I do it for 3, dot around for about an hour, and then go back for another 3, it's like, okay, we can do that. That's fine. Right, so that's how I work with the uninterrupted time. So I work for 50 minutes and I take a 10-minute break. And in this time, no notifications on my phone, no notifications on Facebook, nothing. All I've got is my sticky note and what I need to do.
Nice.
And that's it. Nothing else. As I say, it takes a bit of time to get used to, but your brain starts getting used to it. And from people who've done this for a long time, they say you actually get to a point where you can actually do it for like 5 hours non-stop.
Nice.
And you can imagine, you know what you've got your priority list down, so you know what you're doing is moving you forward in the direction that needs to. You've planned your day already, so there's nothing, wacky and weird that you expect to come at you. It happens sometimes, but you're less reactive, so you're more proactive with your day.
Yeah.
And then you sit down for 5 hours and just get it done. Yeah. How amazing is that?
That's so cool. Everyone's dream,
I know, right? I know. So I'm quickly going to move on to recommended reading so we can open up for some questions as well. So these are the two books that I read that were absolutely great for this. So there's the one thing which talks about the importance of just having one thing that you focus on. So instead of having loads of stuff, like Carolyn, you mentioned that your to-do list is very long. I would say this would be a really good book for you to read, and it just talks about the importance of really narrowing down and focusing on going down to the level of what's the one thing that I need to do to get me X and X. So I would say what's the one thing that you need to do, just reading your comment here, to quickly bring in cash flow.
Yeah.
And once you've defined that, then just setting the time to do that and working in focused time blocks to make sure that gets done. And another book that I found really good is The Power of Habit. And being productive and scheduling your time and knowing what to do, it's a habit. So for me, for example, when I was building in the habit of doing my weekly pre-planning, doing my daily planning, and counting the number of focused hours I was working for. So for 2 months, Monday to Friday, without fail, I had an accountability partner in the morning who would call me and make sure that I'd done my morning planning. And she would call me again in the evening to make sure that I'd done my planning for the next day and I'd monitored my progress through the day and what I could do better. Wow. I could tell you, by the time we'd got to about week 6, I did not want to hear her voice. Again, I was fed up. But the thing is, productivity and, working with the routine and things like pre-planning, identifying your priorities, it's a habit, and it's something that you have to keep doing every single day until it becomes automatic. And they say a habit takes about 6 to 6 days to form. So quite literally, for example, if you want to sit there, Angie, Carolyn, if you want to be able to sit in a position 2 months from now and you do your pre-planning and you identify your priorities, it's about doing it every single day for about 2 months. Wow. Not easy.
Yeah.
It's definitely not easy. And fine, having that, someone that really holds you accountable for that as well. That was great for me. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have been able to do it. Like, now that I can go back and see where I was before I did that and where I'm at now, that was probably one of the most important things for it. And also just understanding that productivity and being having more structure in your life and getting more done, it's not a skill, it's a habit. And that's great, because you find people will say, oh, I just can't do it, I'm not smart enough for this, or other people can do it and I can't. But it's not. It's literally just a habit. You just have to have enough discipline to force yourself for it to become a habit, and then it's fine. So for me now, my pre-planning, if I haven't pre-planned, something is missing. It's weird. I sit at my desk and the first thing I do is start my planning. I finish my day and my day ends with me looking at where I'm at and planning for the next day. Awesome. Okay, so my 4 daily productivity tools that I use. So I've got bookmarks, because they say we waste about 2 hours a day trying to find stuff. So I have my bookmarks here, where, everything that I look at often. I've got my online courses. I've got, the business over here. I've got a folder for it. Every book that I want to read. Anything that I look at on a daily basis is in here. And then I've got my Google Drive that I mentioned, where I've got all my templates, anything that I do regularly, more than, 2-3 times. A template gets created for it. A checklist gets created for it, so I don't have to do it again. So I recently created a checklist for traveling. So because I travel with work, I'm in Edinburgh this week, in Scotland. Next month, I'm in Germany for 2 weeks. So it's just having, okay, what do I need? Do I have my accommodation? Do I have my travel? What am I packing, etc., etc., that sort of thing. So then when I'm doing my packing up, I'm just going through my checklist. Makes it super quick, super easy.
Yeah, awesome.
And then I've got Asana as well that I use as my task management tool. So this is where I have my to-do list and everything. So I've got my slay moments, my priority list. That's somewhere else, and then I've got my to-do list that sort of falls in here. Yeah. But the one thing I would add, before I started using Asana, I just used my sticky notes and focused on my priority list for about 3 weeks before I moved into using a tool. And the reason why I say that is because, and Bill Gates sort of talks about that. He's got a quote, I'm paraphrasing here, and he talks about technology. It says, you can use technology. If you have a broken process and you add on technology will just magnify how broken your process is. Yeah. But if you have an efficient process and you add on technology, then it again just your efficiency again just blows up. It becomes so much better. So if you go in and you've got a broken process of identifying what the most important thing for you to do, etc., and you don't plan your days and you go jumping into Asana, you're going to have or Trello, which is something else that's used, you're going to have problems. And I'm saying this again because that's where I started. I started with Asana to begin with, and then completely messed it up because my to-do list had like 20, 30 things a day, which was ridiculous. And then now I'm using Asana. Once that sort of cleared up the brokenness in my process, now I'm able to do it properly. And even when I first started, I had like 12 things in a day, which is still too much. So now I only have about 3 or 4. And I'm actually getting more done because I'm not just looking at it. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's actually stuff that I can just tick off and that's done. So it's really starting to scale back, but I would say no more than 10 items on Asana. And that is for someone who's like a pro. After you've been doing it for a long time, get on to having more things per day. Yeah. But anyway, and then the next one is a Google Calendar. So calendar I use to schedule my days, plan my stuff. I've got my Google Calendar for my own stuff. And at work we use Outlook. So I use both of them usually. And then I've got a few quotes over here that we're coming up to the end of time. But I'll just sort of pick this. So one of the things that I really wanted to do and why I went into productivity, because I was so tired of spending time with my family, with my friends, and I was always thinking about the work that I needed to do. I'm also a single girl, so I kind of need to go on dates and stuff, and I just didn't have time for any of that stuff. So, and I wanted every time, like when I show up for my friends and my family, I don't have work in the back of my mind because that means I'm not showing up in the best way that I can for them. So I love this quote that says the people we live with and work with on a daily basis deserve our full attention. When we give people segmented attention, piecemeal time, switching back and forth, the switching cost is higher than just the time involved. We end up damaging relationships. So that was really powerful for me. And wow. I totally agree. So that is not something I want to do. Just when you start looking at your time and thinking about how precious it is, when people give you their time and you're with your family, you and your friends, you just want to make sure that you are showing up in the best way that you possibly can. And one of them is just, making sure your life and your business and stuff, you've sort of got that under control. And then the power of habit quotes as well. So here I've got 3 quotes here, but because we're running out of time, I'm just going to focus on the one that I think just really, really speaks to me the most. These are off the couple of books that I mentioned, is that habits are powerful but delicate. They can emerge outside our consciousness or can be deliberately designed. They often occur without our permission, but they can be reshaped by fiddling with their parts. They shape our lives far more than we realize. They're so strong, in fact, that they cause our brains to cling to them at the exclusion of all else, including common sense. So I think that's something to just sort of sit with a little bit, and how important our habits are, because as I said, being more productive, planning your time, it really is more to do with your habits than anything else, and you can change your habits, which is it's a simple, it's an easy concept, but it's not easy to implement. All right. So, and that is me done. So if you've got any questions, I'll open them up now, and I will share the link to the template that I mentioned.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Frida. I know I've learned a lot, and I know a lot of guys have. Actually, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, that Carol was saying, that she loved the tips on running the meeting, running meetings effectively. So that would be great for you to share. And then, I wanted to ask. I have questions myself. I mean, as people are putting in their questions, it would be great, you guys, as you come up with the questions. I think you need to stop. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. We can see you now. My question is this: what are the ways that, because it was really good to know that, productivity is not about getting more things done, it's about getting the right things done. So what criteria do you use to determine what's more important than the other? Like, what's your criteria when you're trying to determine that, when you're determining what's the most important thing to be done? That's number one. And I think that's, and then the other one is about how you monitor your time. I think that was the one that like how at the end of the day when you're looking back, like what you've been able to do, how long you spent doing it, and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing is how I identify the most important thing. I must say that it comes with time and it comes with skill. It's one of the things that I have got wrong for so long, and now it's getting to the point of like, okay, this is the most important thing. It's knowing the question I ask myself is, what's the one thing do I need to do that will move me forward to this goal? So, for example, for me, I said, go back to the webinar example again. I know, okay, the webinar's coming up. This is the day. What's the one thing do I need to do that's the most important thing to do that will move me closer to my goal? And also, what can I do that will save me a lot of time downstream? Yeah. So when I thought about that, I thought, okay, there are two things that are very, very important for me to start with. First of all, I need to run a webinar. How do I do that? What's the one thing that I can do to learn how to run a webinar? Someone who's a master at running webinars, and figure out how they do it. Yeah. Okay, so that's one thing that I did. And then I thought, now I've got my I've watched the webinar. Now I've got that information. What's the other thing that I need to do that will help move me closer to a successful webinar? Yeah. And it will then save me time further downstream. Okay, the second thing I need to do is create a template for, say, webinars, so that every time I have a webinar, it's a template that I can use. And so that was the second thing. So it's really sitting down and thinking. We call them leverage tasks in productivity world. Yeah. So what is the one thing that I can do that will really save me time, and will get me closer to my goal, which is awesome. That's what it takes a bit of time to figure that one out.
I hear you. Actually, let me even chip in because it's so interesting. A few of you will know that we're currently doing our renovation of our property in Diani. So we're having this discussion with my husband in terms of, okay, you know what, this is the financing that we can get. And, the financing will not cover everything we absolutely desire to do. So guess what? We're going to have to actually pick and choose, right? So we had differing thoughts about what we should start with. And it was really interesting. Like my approach was, hey, you know what? Let's just look at the numbers. You see, if we do this particular thing, like if we create, like we're building a new cottage versus refurbishing the existing one, building the new cottage will actually get us this kind of income in the next 6 months, right?
Yeah.
But if we refurbish, then that will get us this kind of income in the next 6 months. So because it's not, so we found out that actually the leverage task in this case is building the new one. That gets us a lot more income in the next 6 months. So I love what you're saying about you just figure out then the one that will get you the most return. And one particular way I'm doing that as well is using it's called the entrepreneur scorecard, where I'm able to like take I know a task a task that maybe will bring me $10 tasks, and those tasks which are like writing some emails, creating some maybe no, not really emails, even just posting on social media, doing phone calls, doing just really stuff that I can actually delegate. But the stuff that is like a five, and I learned it from Todd Hammond. The stuff that is a $500 task is like doing a webinar where I get to get my message out there. People get to know about me. And this is actually telling me that next month, the person who learned about me this month is someone who will probably next month be, interested in my product and buying it next month, next week, who knows?
Okay. Exactly. Yeah. It is thinking about what is my return on time invested, essentially. So, we always look for a return on our cash invested as well. So in this case, it's like, what is my return on my time invested? And that makes a huge difference. So that's how I identify the most. And thank you so much for sharing. That's a great example. And what was the second question?
How do you track your time? How do you know what you spend, what time you spend on what, and when you're looking back?
So what I do is I use an app called Time Glass, and with Time Glass, you know how I mentioned, so I'll start with like my, when I'm pre-planning my stuff. So on Time Glass, you can actually use a stepped timer. So for each different task, you can say, 5 minutes, etc. And it keeps going. So I can set up 10 different things that I do within 20 minutes, 2 minutes each. And it'll let me know when it's time to move on. So I use that. And also I use it for my Pomodoro. So my hour-long focus blocks. All I do, literally, I've got my sticky note in one hand, I've got my timer in the other, and all I do is once I'm done, I will just write down on my sticky, this is what I did. And at the end of the week, it's like counting money. I look at my time as money. So my sticky notes are my money. So I keep them at the end of the day. I do that every day. I look, how many, so I can tell you I did 6 hours today. I know what I did them on. I've got different colored stickies for my side gig. I've got different colors for my work. So even at the end of the week and I'm reconciling, I'm like, what did we get done? And I look at my sticky. Oh, this is what we finished at this time. This is what we did, that sort of thing. So I've got my plan sticky and I've got my actual sticky as well. I just write down what I did. So mine is very, very manual. And then at the end of the week, I'll put all of that stuff in my productivity sort of tracker, my Slay Moments tracker. So I put that in there and see how I've done it. So that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's really great. Well, maybe the last question, because I think there's no new questions that have come in, but the last question, and you guys, if you're joining, please do put in a question below. We've been talking about how to have a full-time job. Working full time, very hard. Of course, we're all hard workers. While building your side gig, and while actually being able to get results that actually mean something. So, as you guys join, when you have any questions, just put them in. But we are winding down. You can actually just replay the entire thing. Can I say that probably, Frida, when if people put in any questions or comments, you'll be back to kind of respond to those.
Oh yeah, definitely, 100%. Well, I would say just tag me. That would get me even quicker. But yeah, for sure.
Awesome. So maybe one last question is, how can people learn more? If guys would like to find out, how can they work with you? How can how can they get the awesome resources that you've mentioned? Maybe you could share with us how they can do that.
Yeah, sure. So I'll put in a link in the comments as well, but you can find me at kochola.com /after5entrepreneurs. But I will have that in. So you can find me on there. And if you'd like to have a conversation, I'm happy to jump on a call and just take you through, a consult. We can just have a conversation. You can let me know what challenges you're having, and we can talk through that, and I can let you know what my thoughts are and just help you out a little bit.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on. And I should have mentioned this at the beginning. Frida and I actually met online on a shared group.
Yeah, we did on Facebook. We did.
Isn't it so cool? I mean, I love the internet. I think Frida had asked a question about what would you advise a 29-year-old, for those who are older, like what would you advise your 29-year-old self? And it was a really interesting question. Brought a lot of, a lot of interaction, a lot of feedback. I really loved it. So we started chatting. We actually started chatting, Frida and I, back and forth. And then I did work with Frida actually for a little bit, helping her map her stuff out, map the program that she's working on out. And so she's amazing. She's a phenomenal woman. A fun fact is that we actually have the same personality type, of course, with its own nuances. We're both ENTPs. Isn't that amazing? I'm like, woohoo, soul sister. Yeah, so I should have mentioned this in the beginning, but for you guys that were here, thank you for for hanging out with us on this Thursday evening, and as you watch on the replay as well, do put in your comments, put in what your aha moments, and I know we'll be back to interact some more, right? Okay, well,
for sure, and I'll put in my template of the slay moments. Please use them, etc. And if you've got any questions, if you want me to, do a bit of a instructional video on how I use it on a week-on-week basis, or do it live with you when I'm actually filling it in at the end of the week, just let me know. Happy to do that.
Awesome. So cool. Thanks so much, Frida. So I'm trying to find my my app where I will, let me exit full screen so that I can exit the end of the session. But thanks so much, you guys. It was super cool to hang out. Thanks for joining in. That joined in.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks, guys. Thanks, ladies. Amazing. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Yeah, you're right.